The bid to move polls date from August to December flops miserably. A lot of people are wondering what happened there. No quorum was the biggest hitch yesterday, and this, of course, was being brought by Kiminini MP Chris Wamalwa. What went wrong, Honorable Amisi?
Yeah, probably the Kiminini legislator would have been the better person to ask. But I want to comment on that. I think Kiminini legislator is my friend, and I did talk to him before presenting that bill to Parliament. These are some of the bills that needs a very high threshold to go through, 2/3. In the recent past, we've not been able to manage to raise such a high threshold to pass any bill. It's quite, unless you've done enough mobilization of members. But more so, looking at the merit of the bill, one way we may ask, was Kiminini MP well informed on the need to change the date from August to December? He clearly did not come out strongly to convince members enough why he needed to change that date, because remember, some members wanted enough reasoning behind, especially when we have members who come from the cosmopolitan town constituencies like mine. For example, Kitale is more cosmopolitan. Most Nairobi MPs will not support such a bill because most of the voters travel home during the festive season. December is also a month that is full of festive activities, and most tourists, when you talk about an election in Kenya, they fear because it has been marred by violence before.
Right.
And in fact, some will wonder, it's only Kenya that the whole world knows that we'll have an election. Other countries, if you ask, for example, when in Singapore having an election, will not know. But Kenya, apparently the whole world always know that they'll be having an election. So all these factors coupled together, I think the legislator should have really done a good background check before presenting this bill. I think it was quite premature. And secondly, it could have faced legal hurdle. Why? Because the bill touches on the term of the presidency.
Right. And
any article, amendment to any article in the Constitution that touches on the term of the presidency, even if you are increasing by a day or an hour, you have still touched on the term of the president. And definitely, our elections are done at the same time. The election of the members of parliament and the president is at the same time. So if you change the date of the members of parliament, you are also basically changing the date of the presidential election. So I think it was bound to fail from the word go. I did explain to him that this one, you did not do enough background checkup.
You mentioned the need to
and plus, this piecemeal change of constitution should not be acceptable. I mean, we are talking about an overhaul of the entire constitution that has burdened Kenyans. And we should look at it not from a partisan political point of view, but a decent committee and a decent maybe personalities should be taken through the entire constituency and find out this 20% that we talked about must be changed in the near future. Is it that now the time is nigh for it to be changed, and which are the articles? I hear people moving around supporting for and others against the referendum. Right. So you wonder, where is the question? Why are you just jumping and whipping your supporters against something that does not exist? Yeah. You've not even had the question, you've not had the articles to be changed. You are all over campaigning against something that does not exist.
You mentioned this issue of piecemeal changes to the Constitution. Yesterday, Senior Counsel Agwin Nasir was on JKL, and he mentioned that we should not make fundamental changes to the Constitution. Yes, it needs some amendments here and there. But what's your take on that? With this push for a referendum, what changes are needed in the Constitution, if any, in your view, Senator Kang'ata?
Thank you. But before I go to that, maybe I wanted to comment on this and say,
sure.
The problem I have with this headline is that the philosophy that Matiang'i appears to be reinstating is one where the government has a lot of powers to towards probably tackling this issue. It has not worked for so many years. I don't see a situation where that's working. There are two possible solutions. Number one, we can privatize enforcement of traffic rules. It has happened in other jurisdictions. Maybe we can do a piloting here in Kenya, see how that works. Also, there are technological solutions. I was the other day in America, and I found a Kenyan who has come up with an certain app which traces passengers who enters into a motor vehicle. It can even monitor a speed, and therefore I told him maybe I'm going to try it and take him to various government honchos who can see how that can be adopted, because that would assist a lot in enforcing discipline. Otherwise, if you leave everything to government, you know government has a lot of inherent inefficiencies. I don't see any change to this. Therefore, I would propose Matiang'i to think outside the box, that is, consider technological solutions to these problems and also privatization when it's come to enforcement of traffic rules. On your question now, let me say, one, personally, I would propose the following amendments to the constitutions. Number one, yes, I agree, the constitution, the way it is crafted, it does not foster what I would say solidarity among tribes. You'll see a situation where it is possible for two major ethnic tribes to perpetually domineer our politics for a very long time. When you look at Article 138 of Article 4, where it says that for one to win a president, for one to win the presidency, he only needs 50 plus 1, I don't know, and 25% of half of the counties. To me, that system is called centripetalism. That is the idea behind those people who crafted that, is that the person who is going to win is going to have to go around the country and get a lot of legitimacy across the country. But you see, when you look at that threshold, it's quite small. And therefore, you have seen a situation where people just aim to get 50 plus 1, and then they ignore the other 49%. So one probable solution would be we increase that threshold, or alternatively, we create what is called a constitutional government. Although personally I'm opposed to it, but it has been used in other countries to achieve what we want, which is, one, we turn into a parliamentary system. Two, you expand the executive. Three, you create another office of a prime minister, and probably you ensure the people will be winning. They don't win through what we call first past the post. They win through what is called a coalition. That way, you'll have a situation where almost every tribe is represented in the government, but it has its own demerits.
So more or less what's happening in South Africa?
Well, South Africa, I think, is not the best example. I think the best example is in Lebanon. They have what we call, or even Kenya between 2007 and 2013. But for me, I think the best case scenario, because when you introduce that kind of a system, the so-called constitutional government, it may unravel so many other clauses in the constitution. I think the best case scenario is for us to consider whether we can increase the threshold as provided for under Article 1, that is about Article 4. But number two, the other areas probably we need to check from where I sit is maybe we need to look at the so-called judicial powers. I think we have seen a situation where judges are now making the law when they are seated at the bench, which is not good. They are not elected. We must ensure the law are still being made by parliamentarians and the people who have the constitutional role. There's a principle we call non-delegation doctrine. You must ensure every branch of the government does not do or usurp the rules of the other one. So I think we need to tweak that and see how we can ensure that it is Parliament that is continuing making law, not people who are not elected, from where I sit.
Okay. Before we head to break, really quickly, Honorable Kamket, if you wanted to chime into this before we head to our break.
Oh, you know, I have made myself very clear by drafting a bill to amend the Constitution. My views are out there. Everybody is aware of what I think. I'm happy that finally what I proposed or what I came up with is being discussed. I'm feeling vindicated. I knew when I drafted my bill that we have a political problem in this country arising out of the constitutional issues that we have. It is now that everybody is coming up. Everyone has their way or their idea of what they need change in the constitution, and which is good. That tells us that something needs to give at some point, and the earlier we did this, the better, because there are some completely unnecessary, burdensome clauses or articles in that constitution. One of those, which I didn't touch on for obvious reasons, is this thing called requirement for two-thirds
right.
gender rule, which will it is not achievable completely. It's unachievable. So you wonder what went into the minds of our brothers and sisters to put such a impossible to achieve article in our constitution, and many more. So I believe, like my colleague said earlier, it will reach a point now that we will have to bite the bullet and decide, yes, indeed, we need to change this, amend this here and there and there. And like Mheshimiwa Kang'ata here is saying, the appeasement of the tribes of Kenya is more important for stability, because we are a very tribal nation, unfortunately. And so whatever we do, we must be sensitive to that fact. So in the fullness of time, I believe the constitution must be amended, must and should be amended, and as soon as possible.
You know, I wonder, Honorable Odhiambo, whether this process has been politicized a bit too much. There's been concern about that, because it seems to be driven more by the political fraternity than it has the people. What do you make of that? And, you know, in terms of the changes being proposed, mainly politicians are driving that conversation.
Before I come to that, allow me to say something about this change of dates and the elections and everything. I concur with my friend Amisi here that the real valid reasons why our colleague wanted these changes, so according to many of us, were not convincing. I want to maintain and insist and sustain this line of thought. Kenya needs to acknowledge that if we did our things right, it may not matter at what time of the year we are doing it. Because if somebody says that if we did it in August, it will interfere with the dates of the exam and whatever. Really, how long do we need to do an election? It is merely a day or two. If we have systems, right systems, and the people using these systems just decided to do the right thing,